This is Daily Devotion. We're going to start with Matthew 24, verse 1. We're actually going to back it up and start Matthew 23, but really it's because we want to study Matthew 24 and 25. So this is Logos, my Bible program. There are other Bible programs out there, like Accordance Bible software, but Logos is what I use. I recommend it. This is the homepage, but what we need to go up my pre-saved layouts. So down here at the bottom left, and then I've got a whole bunch of things that are pre-saved of all the different books already open that I was using for that study or searches, but we're looking for Matthew 24, all of that discourse. I'm going to click that and it's going to load it up, and then we can get started. So let's get to Matthew 24. Just type it in up there. If you're wondering why these things jump, this little A means these little tabs are all linked together, so they're going to go with each other. That's why I automatically went to 24. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's annoying. Depends what you're doing. We'll leave it for now. So Matthew 24, I'm already familiar with this. I already kind of know it's there. But really, we want to back up and start in 23. So in 23, Jesus has been declaring woes on the scribes and Pharisees. And this is actually it's the opposite side of the coin of blessings. So in Matthew, the Beatitudes get given, and his first discourse of the five major discourses in the book of Matthew, and this is the last of the major discourses in the book of Matthew, Matthew 24 and 25, and now we get the opposite side of the blessings. We get the woes. So they kind of go together, and so the woes are the woes on the scribes and the Pharisees. And then at the very end of that woe section, Jesus says in chapter 23, verse 37, he says, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to it. How often would I have gathered your children together as a hen gathers her brood under her wings, and you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." This kind of sets the stage for 24, I think. And the things that stand out to me is this emphasis on Jerusalem, and that Jesus wanted to protect, right, those people in Jerusalem. He wanted to gather them, but they were not willing. And he says, see, your house is left to you desolate. I think the major question is, what is he referring to when he says house? I know Jesus said, my house shall be called a house of prayer, and house is common language for the temple. Could be referring to Jerusalem, could be the temple, could be more metaphorical, as it's their house, what they've constructed is desolate. I think desolate matters, so I'm curious if there's any connection with desolate in Matthew 24 or 25. So what I'll do is I'm just going to right-click this, and I'm going to be able to search that word. Here's the Greek word for it, eremos, desolate or desert. And if I click that, because in Greek the words can change form based on their function in the sentence. So if I specifically choose the form of that Greek word there, I'll only get it in that form. I won't get it in all its forms. So we don't want that. So if I click it here, I'm going to get it in every form that it appears. So we'll go there, and it populates here to the side. You can see, and I can quickly see, I have my ESV open here, and obviously it's the New Testament. It's not going to show up in my Hebrew Bible or in the Septuagint. So regardless, we can look at that. What I can do, and maybe we will, I was thinking about changing the book that we have here from that to my NA28. I'm forgetting how I do that right now. We don't want those ones selected. not at the top. That's what we want. Let's leave it on. Boom. There we go. So now I can see the English word and the Greek word at the same time. That is funny that font is different like that. I don't know why it's doing that. Wilderness, not helpful. We want to see Matthew 24. So we scroll down and he says, so they say to you, look, he's in the wilderness. That's not really helpful. It's not the same meaning as in desolate, is it? Doesn't seem to be a connection. I know Mark 13 is the parallel passage in Mark for Matthew 24, so we'll see if Mark 13 has anything. Nope. And then Luke 21 is the parallel passage. Nothing in Luke 21 that uses that same word, desolate. So we don't see an instant connection with the word desolate from verse 38 of chapter 23 Matthew with anything in Matthew 24, 25. So we'll just continue on for now. See, your house is left to you desolate, for I tell you, you will not see me again. All right, so they are not going to see. Who's not going to see? Seems like those he's been giving the woes to, scribes and Pharisees. Some people think of them as the leadership in Israel. Maybe it's all of the Jews in Israel. For I tell you, you will not see me again. So they're not going to see Jesus until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Now, earlier in the chronological storyline, people did say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord when they welcomed him when he entered the city. But this is after that. So I've heard people say, oh, well, that got fulfilled when Jesus entered the city. Well, no, you got your timeline messed up. It doesn't. So this hasn't been fulfilled. But Jesus says they're not going to see him again, which implies they will see him again when they say this. The way I understand that is that he's saying, hey, I'm going to come back, my second coming, i.e., when you, leadership of Israel, the people of Israel, however you want to think of that, when you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, when they think of Jesus as being a blessing for coming, and they say it, that goes along with, let's look at another passage here that I know of. Zechariah 12:10 comes to mind. And if you're wondering why it's purple because I have a filter on that shows me whenever God is speaking. So the Bible software thinks this is God's voice speaking. And verse 10, Zechariah 12:10, and it says, and I will pour out on the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of grace and pleas for mercy, so that when they look on me, on him whom they have pierced, they shall mourn for him as one mourns for an only child, and weep bitterly over him as one weeps over a firstborn. On that day, the mourning in Jerusalem will be as great as the mourning for Hadad Rimmon in the plain of Megiddo. There's a lot going on here. If we skim down to chapter 13, it says, on that day there shall be a fountain opened for the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to cleanse them from sin and uncleanness. And so it's in context. So when Jesus, God, however you want to think of this right now, will pour out on the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of grace and pleas for mercy, so that when they look on me, on him whom they have pierced. So that sounds like Jesus speaking, right? When they look on me, on him, first person, third person, whom they have pierced, they shall mourn for him as one mourns for an only child. On that day there should be a fountain open for the house of David, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, to cleanse them from sin and uncleanness. Let's go back. For I tell you, will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. So we've got some sort of setting here where Jesus is setting the stage. I don't know how you can understand that verse 39 without it being his second coming. A, they never said this. If it's his resurrection, A, they never saw him. B, they never said, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. I don't know how you can get away from verse 39 without it being his resurrection. Let's look at a couple commentaries really fast to see if anybody objects or says something else. So the first one I like to go to is the exegetical summary. So I just typed that in. This PG means passage guide. And it just brings up all my commentaries and books I have. And you can prioritize which ones you want to show up top. So I keep clicking here. It just keeps going. Right. So it's too much. So there's journals. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. We'll get to that later. But for now, let's start with the exegetical summary series and see what we got. So opens it. And here we go. Ecos, house. Some translations actually translate that word house temple or sanctuary or city. The BDAG puts it as city. That's interesting. If you don't know, I said BDAG and not Bagda. I don't know why you get taught BDAG, and they put it this order. All that is, I have it open here. It is a dictionary of Greek words. We call those lexicons. So it's the most trusted, best one. But let's get back. So it says city. We got temple, sanctuary for house. This noun denotes a building consisting of one or more rooms, normally serving as a dwelling place. Okay, eremos. That's our Greek word, eremos. Means it can mean desolate, desolation, abandoned. These are how it's getting translated. Now the question, what is the house that is being left desolate? So we asked that question earlier, right? These commentaries say it is the temple. So Baker Exegetical, BNTC, ICC, NAC, NIBC. So a whole bunch of them go with the house is the temple. A couple say it's the city of Jerusalem. So BDAG and the PNTC. So if I was being super intense, I'm not super intense about that yet. I would go through and read and see why they think it is. And some of them might give us an answer and some might not. They might just assume and just say it without giving their reasoning. City of Jerusalem, which includes the temple. So this guy's got the best of both worlds. The temple and the city of Jerusalem were sometimes referred to interchangeably. I could see that because the whole point of Jerusalem is the temple, you know. And when you thought of Jerusalem, you thought that's the city with the temple. So represents all of Israel. I mean, in some sense. The temple represents the entire nation. Includes the temple. Yeah, okay. And I'm not like committing to any one of these ideas. I'm just kind of hearing out. They all sound pretty reasonable to me. And I won't know if they have ramifications for what you think here until we get into the theological questions later. So I'm just kind of holding them softly in my head without coming to a hardcore conclusion. What does it mean that it will be left desolate? That's an important question. It will be deserted, abandoned, destroyed. God will forsake it, destroy it. It refers to Jesus' departure. I mean, you're definitely desolate without the king, right? Jesus is leaving is likened to the cloud of the Shekinah glory departing from the temple. Interesting. Next question. When would the people bless him as the one coming in the name of the Lord? Jesus is describing an eschatological reality that just means end times, the study of the end. And end times is not the most accurate word. It's the end of this age. It's not the end of the world or anything like that. Not something in the immediate future. So the Baker Exegetical goes with that. The EBC, the NAC, the PNTC, and Word Biblical. It represents a great turning in faith to Jesus by Jews at the end of the church age. That's what the New American Commentary says. It speaks of the time when Christ will return on clouds of glory. He is describing the turning to Jesus by significant Jews that happened during the early period of the church's expansion. So here's our first one, that the NIGTC is saying that people saying, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. What that's speaking of is a whole bunch of Jews getting saved in the first century. So we got one commentary so far that's going that direction. Some say it's just a conditional sentence. He is saying that such a welcome and blessing is the only condition on which they would ever be restored to a relationship with him. Not that there would definitely be a time when it would actually happen. That's an interesting kind of like replacement theology kind of view. They're saying that when Jesus says this, he doesn't anticipate that they would actually say that. He's saying you're basically cut off. I don't particularly follow that logic, but we're going to carry on for now. I mean, do we want to look at it? Let's just click on it and see. Your house, especially when spoken in the temple courtyard, naturally refers to the temple building, which would be visible from there, and the more explicit prediction of 24:2 confirms this reference. In that case, there's a sad irony in that what was described in 21:13, my house should be called a house of prayer, as God's house is now your house and has been left to you because God has abandoned it. Yes, this feels very replacement theology. As Jesus himself is about to do in 24:1. See comments there on the echo of Ezekiel's vision of God leaving the temple. There's a special poignancy in the juxtaposition of house, a place meant to be lived in, and eremos, that's that desolate word, uninhabited, which describes not so much its physical dissolution as its being deserted. Its consequent destruction will merely complete the process. The desolation of God's house was predicted in similar terms by Jeremiah, and eremos here perhaps echoes the Septuagint. That's what LXX, that means 70, in Jeremiah 22:5, with his echo of similar eremosis language from Daniel. See the comments on 16:4 for Jesus echoing Jeremiah's prophecies of disaster in Jerusalem for the theological background to this thing. When God's people forsake God's way, the house will be cast out of my sight and ruined. Gar is just the word for. Let's skim this verse over. It's saying that he speaks of seeing me, not God, whose house it was, again, as we've noted before. For Matthew, the presence of Jesus is the presence of God. Once Jesus physically left the temple, from now on, his only connection with it will be to announce and explain its coming destruction. From now on, his only connection will be to announce and explain its coming destruction. But he himself will have abandoned it. Nowhere does Jesus say he's abandoned it. In fact, back in 23, he says, I wanted to gather your children together as a hen gathers. So we get Jesus's, a little bit of his emotions and his desires here, I would say, that he wants to protect it, but it wasn't willing. To me, that sounds more like, because of your wrong behavior, judgment's coming, not you're forever cast aside. This act of judgment can only be averted if the people of Jerusalem are prepared to follow the lead given by the Galilean pilgrims. Psalm 118, he was given in the same words, welcome Jesus as their Messiah. So Psalm 118 has the phrase, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. We're going to need to look at that if we're going to get this phrase, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. As a matter of fact, some of them will probably see him within the next few days when they stand outside the governor's palace and crucify him and his blood on us and our children. The contrast with the welcoming words of Psalms 118 could hardly be greater. And the one they welcome then will be Jesus Barabbas, not Jesus the Messiah. It is not that sort of scene that Jesus is speaking of here. There's no prediction here, only a condition, or rather the only prediction. So here's where where they're not this author of the NICT. Let's see who it is. Oh, I know who it is. It's R.T. France. can't say for certain, but he certainly seems replacement theology to me. There's no prediction here, only a condition, or rather the only prediction is an emphatic negative. From now on, you will certainly not see me. To which the following until clause provides the only possible exception. They will not see him again until they welcome him. But the indefinite phrasing of the second clause gives no assurance that such a welcome will ever be forthcoming, except for the fact that Jesus hypothesized it, right? It just seems funny he'd put it as a possibility if it was not a possibility. So that's what he says. Now, let's go back to the exegetical summary and see what somebody on the other side says. Describing. I mean, there's so many of these that are like decent commentaries we could look at. Let's just look at the Baker exegetical. Your house, probably referring to the temple, might be a metaphor for Jerusalem, the nation itself. Jesus will return only when Israel, in true repentance, other words that were uttered without adequate understanding in Matthew 21:9. So that's when he first entered, right? So they're saying in the Baker exegetical that they're not going to see him, that Jesus won't return until Israel in true repentance, right? Not Gentiles, Israel. This passage illustrates the mysterious relationship between divine sovereignty and human responsibility. Jesus wished to gather the people of Jerusalem, but they did not wish to be gathered. Yet Matthew 11:27, Jesus accomplishes his purpose in revealing the Father to whomever he wills. Despite the judgment announced in 23:38, the tension continues into the future according to the conditional prophecy in 23:39. So Allison is saying that. Who is our author of this commentary? David L. Turner. So Allison is saying it's a conditional prophecy also. Until the people of Jerusalem utter the words of Psalm 118:26 in faith, they will not see Jesus again. But when they do bless the one who comes in the name of the Lord, they will receive the eschatological blessing they have previously rejected. That sounds like what I believe. Let's go to 118:26. I can't just click on this. Yeah, it changed my 24. I wish it would have opened it in this one. I don't know how to change that. So 118, it's really best to read the whole thing. But one quick thought on that 23, I'm going to click back really fast. I've heard someone suggest that there could be a loophole here that explains a lot of history. So, and I wouldn't say this is like hardcore true, but it's interesting and it's plausible. How probable it is, I couldn't tell you, but it's within the realm of some sort of reasonableness. But imagine if you're Satan, right? And Revelation 20:21 says you're going to go to a pit for 1,000 years in a lake of fire. You don't want that to happen. And you hear Jesus say this. He's made a commitment to Israel that they're going to exist till he comes back, and that he won't come back unless they welcome him back. And some have postulated that perhaps Satan sees this as, hey, if I wipe out the Jewish race, no one can ever welcome Jesus back. He never comes back. Satan never goes to prison for 1,000 years, that pit, and then never ends up in the lake of fire. None of us know the thoughts of Satan, which we probably don't want to know. But there's in some way that does explain some unexplainable things, such as the persecution of the Jews throughout history, even till the 19th century, and even how anti-Semitism is rising up again, unexplainably so. Like, why do people hate this people group so much? Why did Hitler take all the energy when he should have been directing it toward the front lines in World War II, and he takes it to just kill more Jews? Doesn't make sense. But if this postulation is correct, it can make sense. Like, oh, Now I've got a reason why a possible reason why anti-Semitism keeps arising again and again and again when it seems illogical. All right, so we've got this. Before we jump into 24, we've got this idea that Jesus is going to come back again when Israel, the leaders of Israel, whatever, when they welcome him in authentic worship from Psalms 118. Let's look at Psalm 118 really fast. So there's some, we're just going to read it. You got to read it when you're studying it. You can't short step it. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever. Let Israel say, his steadfast love endures forever. Let the house of Aaron say, his steadfast love endures forever. Let those who fear the Lord say, his steadfast love endures forever. Out of my distress I called on the Lord. The Lord answered me and set me free. The Lord is on my side. I will not fear. What can man do to me? The Lord is on my side as my helper. I shall look on and triumph on those who hate me. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in man. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in princes. All nations surrounded me. So as I'm reading this, I'm trying to think, what is the big picture of this? What is the context the psalmist is writing this in? And we haven't read anything on it. We're just reading straight the biblical text. So I'm thinking that as I read this, like, what's being said? Is this a king saying this? Is this a leader, a warrior? Is he thinking about, spiritual things or, literal things? All nations surrounded me. In the name of the Lord, I cut them off, Psalm 118 is, who is this written by? It doesn't tell us who it's written by. In the name of the Lord, I cut them off. They surrounded me on every side. In the name of the Lord, I cut them off. They surrounded me like bees. They went out like a fire among thorns. In the name of the Lord, I cut them off. I was pushed hard so that I was falling, but the Lord helped me. The Lord is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation. Glad songs of salvation. So this salvation here, salvation is one of those words that gets over-Christianized, overused, and we think of it in terms that it wasn't thought of in their day. So we don't want to import our idea of salvation into this when we read this. We want to think, what did this guy mean back when he wrote this? 1000 BC or whenever he wrote this, 1500 BC, I don't know. Are in the tents of the righteous. The right hand of the Lord God does valiantly. The right hand of the Lord exalts. The right hand of the Lord does valiantly. I shall not die, but I shall live and recount the deeds of the Lord. Sounds like there was like a chance of really being killed in battle here, but he got saved. The Lord has disciplined me severely, but he has not given me over to death. So this either all of Israel, if this is a single guy, it's got to be more because nations are coming against him. Seems like it's a plural reality, not just a singular person. The Lord has disciplined me severely, and maybe that means the nations were winning at some level. They had losses, real losses in death and suffering and possessions being destroyed and taken. Open to me the gates of righteousness, that I might enter through them and give thanks to the Lord. This is the gate of the Lord. The righteous shall enter through it. I thank you that you have answered me, and have become my salvation. So maybe they were about to lose hope, and God saved them from annihilation. The stone that the builders rejected. So we know this verse, right? This is from the New Testament. It gets quoted in reference to Jesus. Rejected has become the cornerstone. This is the Lord's doing. It is marvelous in your eyes. This is the day that the Lord has made. Now, when it says this is the day, it's not talking about every day. Obviously, every day the Lord has made. It's saying this is the day. What day? The day when the stone that the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. That's marvelous. This is the day when he answered them and he became their salvation. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Save us, we pray. So here we got the we got a plural, right? What is that? Think hard, Will. That is first person plural. We pray, O Lord. O Lord, we pray. Give us success. What does it mean, success? It means to win. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. We bless you from the house of the Lord. So this context of blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord in Psalm 118 on a very basic reading. I'm no expert in Psalm 118, right? But it sounds like, hey, there's some kind of battle. They had some losses. They're on the verge of being annihilated, maybe. And they pray to the Lord, and he saves them. And they say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. We bless you from the house of the Lord. The Lord is God, and he has made his light to shine upon us. Bind the festal sacrifice with cords up to the horns of the altar. So celebration because of what has happened. You are my God, I will give thanks to you. You are my God, I will extol you. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his steadfast love endures forever. His steadfast love, to me, that sounds covenantal. Covenantal, that God is being faithful to his covenant to them. His steadfast love to keep his covenant endures forever. That'd be a fun study to see if there's any links with steadfast love and keeping his covenant. I don't know, but I'm not going to go down that road right now because we're already one step removed from Matthew 24. If we go down that, we're going to be 2 steps removed. That's how Bible study can go. You can just keep going on rabbit trail after rabbit trail. So now we have some thinking to do. So, well, let's go back to 118 really fast. One other thing I like to look at quickly, I like the ESV Study Bible, and it will give me a quick idea of what a passage is about without having to read a giant commentary. So if I'm kind of in a rush, which I said not to be when you're studying, but we can see what 118 is about. This joyful song of thanksgiving closes the Egyptian Hallel. The psalm calls on all God's people to praise the Lord for his steadfast love, and then moves on to what seemed a personal testament of God's rescue from distress, and then to a liturgical occasion at the Lord's house, which involves the whole people again. The psalm describes a festive procession into Jerusalem after some great deliverance. The original occasion is hard to identify. It could be the rebuilding of the temple or the walls of Jerusalem. In later times, it was sung at the Feast of Tabernacle as well as Passover. It was evidently recited by the crowds when Jesus entered Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. And Jesus may imply that it will be sung again at his second coming. That's the verse we're looking at, Matthew 23:39. It was the last psalm Jesus sang at the Last Supper with his disciples before they left for Gethsemane. That's interesting. Are often still recalled in prayers at the Lord's Supper. The liturgical section inclines most scholars to think the psalm was originally composed for some special ceremony, such as laying the foundation of the new temple or the dedication of the new temple, and indicates that connection would make the I, giving the personal testimony of each member of the congregation, identify himself with the trials of the whole people. God's many acts of deliverance show that his steadfast love endures forever and is not limited to one generation. Interesting. So we have this idea of being saved from disaster or calamity, and it's a blessing when he comes. That to me seems to fit in with this verse. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in late of the Lord. So one of the questions we have to ask is, when Jesus says this, is he intending for those who hear it to get the whole context of Psalm 118 and think of that like, whoa, he's saying more than that. He's saying, hey, like that desolate house thing, there's gonna be a bad day for you, but if you call out to me, it'll be blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, and I will rescue you and save you. Is he implying more? Or is he just using this one verse to mean something other than the context of Psalm 118? I think the context of Psalm 118 fits perfectly fine here, so I would see no reason why Jesus is using this in any other context. So if it fits, I would go with it. Sometimes things seem like they don't fit the context of the Old Testament. And I think sometimes that's because we don't understand the context real well. So it seems like it doesn't fit to us. But if you think a little bit harder and you pay attention a little more, you might start to see the connections. But it's a question we have to ask. We have to think about, how is Jesus using it? 24, here we go. So I'm trying to carry this idea in my head that Jesus already talked about his second coming, that Jewish people might be endangered, Psalm 118, but if they say blessed is he, he'll come back and rescue them and save them, Psalm 118, right? So then 24, Jesus left the temple and was going away when his disciples came to point out to him the buildings of the temple. So they're leaving, and they point out the buildings as they're leaving. But he answered them, you see all these, do you not? Truly I say to you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down. So a couple questions come to my head. Is what is the emotions and the tone of Jesus' voice as he says this? Is he gleeful? Is he happy? Is he sad? Is he mad? Like, what is the emotion he says this in? I'm going to choose to go with the emotion of verse 37 up here. How often would I have gathered your children together? That Jesus doesn't rejoice in the suffering of others. And so when he says, truly I say to you, I see him saying it with sorrow in his heart. Though it's just that it has to happen, that God's dictating it, but he doesn't take pleasure, right, in the punishment of the wicked. There will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down. So we know in 70 AD everything was thrown down. The only stones that didn't get thrown down, and I don't know how much to make a big deal about this, is the Western Wall that still stands today, and that's part of the platform that upheld the whole temple complex. So is that count or does it not count? Not sure. Does it imply that one day every single stone, including those stones, will be thrown down in a future rebuilt temple? I wouldn't have a hard conclusion on that, though I do think there will be another temple built. Verse 3, as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, tell us, when will these things be? What things? The throwing down of the stones, right? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? All right, we need to bust out the Greek here. All right, so verse 3 is second half of verse 3. So, cool thing about Logos is if I hover over these words, it shows up down at the bottom. And I have it over, let me go to information over here. So over here, it's going to show the meaning when I hover over it. So I'm on to Simeon. Simeon? Yeah, I don't know. Means a sign, right? So all these future to be verb, me, I am, and the signs, sign of his coming and the end of the age. So this is the word and. This tis and to, the sign of the coming. This is a phrase, right? Has an article. After and, the second one does not. Right? The end of the age does not have an article. There's a rule in Greek called the Granville-Sharp rule. When you have one article governing two substantives connected by K, the word and, that it means that these two things are, I feel like synonymous is too strong, but that they're speaking of the same thing, right? Like they're in apposition to each other. So let's go back. So what that means is that the disciples asking, tell us, when will these things be? The temple stones being thrown down. And what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age? So in their eyes, and in Matthew's eyes, because the way he wrote it, sign of your coming and end of the age are like synonymous ideas. So they're asking two questions. When will these things be, and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age? Now, we have it. Technically, we have two questions here, right? But we have to ask, why did the disciples ask these two questions? Were they all grouped together in their thinking? The temple is going to be destroyed. Oh, well, that means his coming and the end of the age. Could be. Maybe. So we have to think about that. So truly I say to you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down. And he sat on the Mount of Olives. So the Mount of Olives is like a hill over from where the temple is. You can see it, but it's a walk. I mean, it's not like an all-day walk or anything, but it's going to take, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I don't know. It depends how far up you go, how fast you walk. So this is in their thinking. When will these things be? They want to know the timing of the destruction of the temple. Now, the temple had been destroyed before in Israel's history. It got destroyed in 586 BC when Babylon took over. And that was an example of judgment on Israel. Not a final or ultimate judgment on them, but a corrective judgment meant to make them turn back to God. Right? They went into exile for 70 years. So, end of the age. Let's look at this phrase, end of the age. Let's do a search on that. I might already have one up. End and age. So I just searched these two words. Where do they show up? So I want to see them near each other, right? Let me see what these other searches are. That's hilarious. We can delete that. All right. So end of the age, we're searching in the Bible, right? English Standard Version, all Bible text, verse, and the New Testament. So it's not searching the Old Testament, it's just searching the New Testament. Where do these two words show up near each other? Here's where we get it. Look at this, 13, 39, 40, and 49. All in the same chapter, Matthew 13. So one of the only other places we get it, and then we get it in Matthew 28. So in Matthew, we've got chapter 13, chapter 24, and 28 are the only places this phrase, end of the age, shows up. So let's read them quickly. Matthew 39. And the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels. So Matthew 13, and then 40, just as the weeds are gathered and burned with fire, so will be at the end of the age. I know Matthew 13. Matthew 13 is the parable of, they had the field, but the enemy sowed bad weeds in there, bad seeds with it. And he asked, what should we do? He says, let them grow together. And at the end of the age, we'll harvest them both, right? And then we'll separate them. So end of the age here clearly means the time when the harvest happens, which is like the resurrection, right? When the enemy will take it, when God comes back and he gives rewards to the righteous and justice to the wicked. And the reapers are angels. So angels are reaping the people. Gathered and burned with fire at the end of the age. So at the end of the age, we have this idea of the wicked being thrown in the fire at the end of the age. Because we're thinking, what is the end of the age? And some people might be thinking, well, this is so dumb that you have to clarify this. But that's because people make up ideas about what the end of the age is. That means stuff way other than this. So we want to be clear. What does end of the age mean in Matthew? So it will be at the end of the age, the angels will come out and separate the evil from the righteous. So at the end of the age, we're getting this clear theme that angels are going to be involved, that the people are going to be separated, good or bad. That's going to show up in Matthew 25. So just hang on to that. So we got that question we're reading, Matthew 24:3, and then 28, Matthew 28:20 says, teaching them to observe all that I've commanded you, and behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. that would make sense at the end of the ages when Jesus comes back. He's with us, right? Even though he's like not with us in the sense, but he's like, hey, I'm going to be with you even till, till the very end, I'll be with you is the idea here. Not some intermediate end of the age, or what I've heard said that I strongly object to and can find no basis for in scripture, is that it's the end of the Mosaic covenant that's being spoken of. That's ludicrous. Let's look at these other two passages, though they don't bear as much weight on what Matthew meant as the ones that Matthew did. But let's see what we got. 1 Corinthians 10:11. Now these things happened to them as an example, but they were written down for our instruction, on whom the end of the ages has come. Okay. Hebrews 9:26. For then we would have had to suffer repeatedly since the foundation of our world. But as it is, he has appeared once for all at the end of the ages to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself. So here we got a little bit different ideas here. We got Paul writing in Corinthians and unknown in Hebrews. They were written down for our instruction, on whom the end of the ages has come. That sounds like Paul says, hey man, I think we're at the end. We're at the end. That's how it feels like Paul's thinking, like, hey man. And in Hebrews, it kind of has that same feel too, but as it is, he appeared once for all at the end of the ages to put away sin. So almost like they're like, man, Jesus came. This thing's almost over, dude. Stuff's ending. That's how those two feel to me. And that might be hard for some to reconcile, but clearly in Matthew, we get a different picture of what end of the age is here. If we have difficulty with these ones. So maybe the covenant one, the idea that I've heard, maybe they're taking from Hebrews 9. But as it is, he appeared once for all at the end of the ages to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself. So, yeah, I agree, Jesus. There's no need for sacrifice for the removal of sin anymore. I don't think that means he ends his covenant with Israel, though. All right, let's get back to the text. All right, let's pick up verse 4 next time.